Good afternoon, folks. Really appreciate all of you taking time to come to the Fabric event, and really excited to see the turnout, and I hope all of you can find seats to sit. They're getting some extra seats also over here. So today we have got an exciting lineup of people who are going to be speaking. We have Toby Redshaw, who runs all of 5G there. He's going to be our keynote speaker. So I'm going to try to get off the stage as fast as possible. He's a much better speaker than I am. So Toby's bar has been set here. There's Karthik, who's with Levi Strauss, who is doing the digital transformation. For anybody who wished to see their clothes fitted properly or doesn't fit properly, you can blame Karthik for it. So, or give him credit. So Karthik will be here right after Toby. And then, of course, Sumant Mandal will be giving a perspective, who's a co-founder. He's going to be giving a perspective on the investment area. And then we'll have a discussion on IoT, led by Ashu. So for people who are new here, what does Fabric do? Fabric is focused on co-creating companies. The typical questions that I get asked every time I put the slide up is, are you an incubator? And I said, no, we don't rent out space. We are a reverse incubator. We actually beg, borrow, steal space from our portfolio companies on any given day. But what we are is we start companies from scratch. We focus on cloud. We are thematically focused, and we focus on cloud and IoT infrastructure. We look for really good entrepreneurs, and we have been very, very fortunate to get some wonderful entrepreneurs. I hope all of you had a chance to talk to some of our portfolio companies and talk to some of the entrepreneurs who have started these companies. And we work with them to create these companies. And we follow a process. We follow a process to get these companies started from scratch. So we start with a blank sheet of paper. We come up with white spaces, and we look for entrepreneurs who share the passion for the same space. And from there, we try to figure out the problem that needs to be solved or the opportunity that exists in that. And it takes us a long time. It is not a trivial task. So we spend about a company a year that graduates out of the Fabric. It takes about 9 to 12 months. It's almost like birthing a baby. And then from there, we focus on creating the companies and also try to recruit the founders to work with these founders on these concept space. And after that, we work on technology. We have our technology innovation lab. It's based out in Chennai. Our VP of the Chennai Innovation Center, Ramnath, is somewhere around here. Ramnath, you can raise your hand. That's Ramnath, who is responsible to help all our portfolio companies to manifest their ideas into real products. And then we look to adding at that point a capital infusion into that. The Fabric invests at that point, and to get the product ready to hit critical mass. We are market driven. When we start the ideation process, we probably talk to about 100 to 200 potential customers to make sure whatever we create has a market for it. And then finally, we get them ready for Series A. We also work with other seed investors, angel investors, to raise about $5 million per company and then get the company ready for Series A. We take big bets. These are companies which can be multi-billion-dollar opportunities, and we take the risk of investing that, starting it from day zero. So that the Fabric is truly a co-founder along with the entrepreneurs. This is truly one of a kind. Along with the Hive, Fabric is one of unique in its ecosystem, especially in the cloud IoT infrastructure space. I would like to claim that there's no one like us in terms of creating these companies. And it shows up in the success of the various companies we have created. The underlying is we started in 2012. We started with a focus on cloud infrastructure. And we focused on 3 areas: network, security, and data. And we created companies, all of those 3 areas. VeloCloud, of course, was the most successful. And we also created Penza, which was focused on the VNF space. Appsito, which is focused on providing ADC as a service in the cloud. And Perspica was focused on providing AI-driven root cause analysis for application performance problem. So we cover quite a bit of area in the space. And then we went into the hybrid cloud as the industry evolved, and IoT space. IoTM, which just closed its Series B, very, very promising company, enormous amount of traction in the smart building and industrial space. And Rosetta, which is focused on IoT security. And Spanigo, which provides continuous compliance assurance. You have seen Palo Alto Networks make big bets right now in acquisition on some of these companies in these spaces. It's a massive space. Spanigo is focused on doing continuous security assurance. And if for those of you who have a chance, please do stop by the tables. You'll find what each of these companies do. Then as we move along in time, multi-cloud and edge computing have now become very big. And in the network space, we are exploring. There are a couple of entrepreneurs here who are focused on the network and edge computing space. It's a project within the Fabric. We can, if anybody's interested, we can talk privately. And we actually work very closely with Verizon, the likes of Verizon, which Toby will talk about all the 5G, but this ties very closely into that space. Along with that, with the advent of microservices, Kavach. For those of you who don't know, Kavach is not Jewish, it's actually Sanskrit, and it means shield. And it is to protect microservices. With the advent of microservices and containers, how do you protect these applications running and the services running in that? And finally, there's K-Mesh and OpsCruise. For all of those people, GDPR or data localization, there is no easy solution today for apps to run anywhere and the data to be localized easily. And to satisfy all the localization requirements, China, India, Europe, Kavach addresses that problem. And K-Mesh addresses the problem. K-Mesh also has a place here. You should talk to them, and they have a very, very interesting solution. Along with OpsCruise, for folks, for Dan Maloney, who was the CEO of Perspica, will be very familiar. Dan, sorry to say, it's a better Perspica. It's more than that. OpsCruise is focused on doing continuous performance assurance for microservices. So these are some of the companies. These are fairly deep technology companies, and we are very proud in having started them. Fabric One, it shows the success. When we started Fabric 6 years back, so the question is, we are taking concentrated bet in thematically focused rather than spreading across various different domains. And does this methodology pay off? We did. Fabric One, 3 of the 4 companies got acquired, which is a pretty interesting number given the statistics in the investment startup world. Fabric 2, we have had IoTM, which did a very good round of funding. Ron Victor is here somewhere, and there, Ron. Ron is built. When we started talking, is an interesting anecdote about Ron. When we were starting to validate this idea, we ran into Ron, and he was in another IoT startup. And we pitched the idea to him trying to get validation. As the old adage goes, he liked it so much, he decided to join and get the company going. And finally, Fabric 3. We have raised $20 million. We had some interesting, very good investors, and we're very proud to have Verizon invested in Fabric 3. And we have companies in this space which you'll find very interesting, Kavach and all of the things that I talked about, and raised $20 million. Beyond that, we are also proud to have been associated with some industry leaders. We created the Cloud Thought Leadership Council, which helps, we want to get real-world inputs into what the CXOs of various companies face in this space as they're going through this enormous digital transformation, what problems they have, what do they like to see going forward. We have a very solid Cloud Thought Leadership Council put together. In addition to that, besides the vision that the CXOs create, there is a whole team of people who manifest themselves in actual real products. We are using microservices and other approaches. So these are hands-on technologists in these various end enterprises. And we team up with them. We formed microservices working groups from a variety of different companies, end consumers of the products, who also work with us very closely. So with that, I will turn over the mic to Prabakar, my partner in crime, who will talk about, he's the brains behind the whole thing. So Prabakar, take it over.
Yeah. So, can everybody hear me? Okay, good. I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. This is the largest crowd that I have seen in this event, so I'm a little bit intimidated. For those of you who know me, that you know that's not true. So anyway, so Rajan talked about all the things that were very clear. My job is to come up and really confuse the heck out of you by talking about waving my hands vigorously in air. Klaus knows all about that. So, Clicker, not the Cisco company. So, what I thought I would do is talk about a few things that we are looking at in a forward-looking manner. So, we talked about a few companies that are already in flight. Rajan just talked about the microservices working group that we are trying to establish. Well, the reason that we are doing that is we are seeing that there's a big change taking place in the application architectures, where people are really taking a relook at how the application should be structured. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll talk about how the centralized model for clouds is giving way to a highly distributed edge deployment model, and what are the reasons and what are the advantages, what kind of workloads might be interesting for that. And then we'll talk about everybody's favorite subject. Everybody wants to bet on crypto coins, right? People own Bitcoins here? Ethereum? I think Jim raises his hand. So he has a few squirreled away in his dresser drawer, I think. So, oh, there, Asha, yes. Absolutely. But I'm not going to talk about that. So I'm going to specifically be addressing the data structure that underlies this crypto coin, which is highly advantageous for distributed trust models for enterprises, and why that makes sense. And that's kind of like the farthest area that we are looking into. So the first thing is microservices. Rajan talked about the working group that we are establishing. We are doing that because in all the companies that we have been working on in the recent past, what we are observing is that there's an enormous interest in kind of, you can think of it as like bite-sized functionality of applications, and building them out and composing applications out of them, rather than creating this big applications that used to be there. That started to disaggregate a little bit with the middleware that came along, but that's been now going to scenario where people are composing tens or hundreds or even thousands of little services, and these are all being developed independently by different teams. That causes a lot of stresses and strains in how infrastructure was interacting with the applications. And one of the things that we talked about was, for instance, Kavach, that is looking at what happens to security in that kind of an environment. Policies, how do policies get built? How do Ops Crews is looking at how do you assure performance assurance in that kind of a world. So we said every company is looking into this, and a lot of customers are looking into this. So we should be able to look at technologies that can underlie this and understand a lot more about how these things are happening. So I think you will see, just like DevOps came in and a lot of people are talking about that, I think the whole microservices revolution, I think, is going to be the next big thing in the application architectures. Maybe some of you might think it's already passé, but what we are seeing is we are encountering it in every single customer scenario that we are talking to. The next one is, as I said, centralized clouds are now giving way to people are saying, so Cisco first came up with this idea of this fog computing, which is great, but it is a lot more than that. People are saying it is not just at the edge of, say, a premise or an IoT deployment. It is, you really need to think of infrastructure being highly distributed and a lot of functionality running at the edge. So why, right? There are a few different issues. One is that you need to get closer to the users if your requirement is to interact very quickly with the users. And that comes up a lot in mobile environments. And actually, you will hear a lot about this when Toby gets up to talk about what Verizon is doing. And you will also hear about how the new kind of application models like the augmented reality, virtual reality, interactive gaming, mobile IoT, where I think Raj Kanaya is here. I was talking to him earlier about what Aries is doing there. There is a lot of interest in interacting quickly with those type of devices, aggregating the data, making sure that you can act very quickly at the edge. And those are the reasons that this becomes interesting, and we are actively exploring the space to find what we should be doing from an infrastructure perspective. And some of the discussions that we have had has been highly encouraging, so we hope to get a project going in this space very soon. So we'll be coming and talking to a lot of you about that. So would be great to hear your feedback. And as I said, I talked about blockchain, and we are looking at it not from the cryptocurrency perspective, but utilizing the data structure in a distributed trust kind of application. So the typical example that is given is a lot of you have bought and sold houses, right? So you go through a title company. I don't think anybody from a title company is here because what I say, they may not like it. So one of the things that people want to say is, why do you need a title company? You can have all of these parties that are involved in transacting that home transaction can directly transact on a distributed trust model. Okay. Similarly, you have other clearing houses like sending wires, or you have health records. So people are saying, why should health records be owned by clinics? It should be owned by the user, and everybody should interact with it in a distributed manner. So these things are all going to come out in the enterprises, and we are starting to look at, okay, so what does that mean from an infrastructure perspective? It seems to be pretty early now. A lot of people are kicking the tires, so we are kind of trying to engage into the ecosystem, and we are trying to figure out how do we work towards building something up in that space. So that's pretty much what I had to say. So with that, I would like to kind of bring up this thing that you might have seen that we keep posting on LinkedIn and spamming a lot of you. And it's so we have these short clips or vignettes that we have from industry experts where they talk about various kinds of things. Like I talked about microservices, or like Abhishek might talk about that. Klaus is talking about security issues and how to build companies. And so we get all of these kind of short, very, very quick vignettes. They won't take a lot of time. Please go to thefabricnet.com and look at these things. Really good stuff. I need to do this. Okay. So other thing I wanted to show is a very short clip about our long form interactions that we have had, where people have a very deep discussion for about, say, 20 minutes or so. And we have been posting a bunch of those as well. This is about just a 3-minute video here that talks about what people have been saying. It's very interesting.
To me, a leader has to be pretty passionate about innovations and driving the innovation culture. That leader should also be a talent magnet. Should be able to attract the best and the brightest in the industry. And at the same time, the leader has to be able to inspire and motivate.
When Rajan approached with the idea behind VeloCloud, it seemed like a pretty attractive fit. And that's why I got involved with the company. It's a combination of luck, foresight, and execution that got us to this stage. The other important piece that I think we bring to the table in VeloCloud is a sense of irreverence, that while we may be the co-founders and maybe the CEO, everyone's pretty much at a level playing field.
The biggest thing which I liked about Ron was he understood the problem. he came from a space.
So to work with in a sense, a co-creator who's been there before, done that, yourself, Rajan, and other members of the team, not just investing in the companies, but have actually been operators, have been through this process, and really can kind of kickstart you in that kind of idea phase to get into product and getting those first customers. That's invaluable.
You guys did a phenomenal job in bringing an ecosystem of players around us, from investors to potentially other CEOs of other IT companies in the Valley, etc., to bring them around and give us the support that we needed to build this company.
Exciting time to be in Silicon Valley, working in this space, providing software-defined security, providing connectivity from applications to the cloud to the endpoints, right? There's a lot of things that we can do in this space to solve some of those problems for our clients.
I wanted to invest day one I met you, but as you and I know, you had one of the most successful exits of VeloCloud prevented me from investing in the Fabric because we were big investors in one of the competitors, that's Versa Networks. The minute you exited that investment, guess what? I called you.
That is true.
You remember that?
That is correct.
What you're doing at the Fabric is really representative of the shift that's going on. IoT and Edge really represent distributed.
So what VeloCloud comes in is, when we looked at it, we saw that it can actually help modernize a WAN architecture, just like we've done in the data center, and abstracting the software from the hardware. They're doing the exact same thing on the WAN function. So by using software-defined technologies, they're able to abstract the function and move it to the cloud.
What's really unique about the Fabric is the skills that the leadership bring, the resources, in various cases leveraging development resources that the Fabric gives to you, the early funding that you potentially need, and kind of that template or model about what's needed at that phase.
Ecosystem of advisors.
That's right. And really that's invaluable. And to me, what does that do? That helps mitigate a lot of the risk.
Efforts and your hard work which will get you to the top, but it's your character which will keep you there. Embrace speed, simplicity, and agility. If you do that, you'll do great.